door beneath Lake Baikal. 5,000 feet below Lake Baikal, a diver found something that should not exist. Not bones, not wreckage, not some old machine lost in the dark. A door. A smooth metal doorway standing upright in the ancient silt at the bottom of the deepest lake on Earth. And when he got close to it, his suit began to vibrate. Not from cold, not from pressure, from a hum. A sound so low it felt less heard than felt inside the bones. A low mechanical hum is coming from the black center of the doorway. At first, the team thought it was a sensor problem. Then his oxygen levels began to drop too fast. Then the cameras started to fail. Then the diver said something over the radio that nobody on that boat would ever forget. He said, very quietly, "I think it knows I am here." Lake Baikal is the kind of place people speak of with respect, even when they try not to sound afraid. In daylight, it looks beautiful. Endless water, mountains, ice in winter like broken glass stretching to the horizon. But none of that matters at depth. Down there, the lake is older than memory, darker than night, colder than any place where a human body was meant to go. The pressure can crush steel. The silence feels heavy. Even trained divers say the deep waters of Baikal do not feel empty. It feels occupied, as if the lake is not holding secrets, as if it is guarding them. The expedition took place on April 21st, 2026. Officially, it was a geological survey. That was the public explanation. A team of Russian researchers and private contractors had brought a support vessel onto the lake to scan one of the deepest areas and test a new deep diving system. There were cameras, sonar, pressure sensors, thermal readings, and a reinforced suit designed for dangerous depths. The diver was a veteran. His name was Ilya Morozov, 42 years old, former naval diver, calm under stress. The kind of man who did not waste words and did not scare easily. People trusted him because he was the opposite of dramatic. If Ilya said something was wrong, then something was wrong. The descent began just after 1 a.m. That was the first detail some of the crew later said they could not stop thinking about. Why had they gone down at night? That question would return to them again and again. The answer was simple. The lake was calm. The weather was good. The schedule was tight. The equipment was ready. But later, after everything that happened, nobody liked that answer anymore. At first, the mission was routine. The control room on the vessel glowed with cold monitor light. Sonar maps rolled across the screens. Thermal graphs flickered. The cable unwound slowly as Ilya descended into black water beneath the ship. His helmet camera showed drifting particles in the beam of his light, white flecks floating through darkness like ash. Every few seconds, one drifted across the lens and vanished, as if something had swallowed the light. He gave short, calm updates over the radio. Depth, pressure, visibility. Everything normal. The crew listened and watched. Ria, the mission lead, Pavel monitoring oxygen and suit data, Mikhail on sonar, Sergei, chief engineer, Rosalie filming the mission for internal records. At 3,000 feet, Ilya's voice was steady. At 4,000 feet, the water around him looked like endless night. At 4,700 feet, Mikhail leaned toward his sonar screen and said, "Wait." Nobody answered. He adjusted the gain and ran the sweep again. There it was, A shape. Too straight, too clean. A vertical return rising from the lake bed. Not rock, not natural, not random. Too deliberate. Ria asked Ilya to slow down and hold position. He did. The camera showed only darkness ahead and a faint cloud of disturbed silt beneath him. "Do you see anything?" Ria asked. "Not yet," he said. Mikhail narrowed the scan and cursed under his breath. The object was narrow and tall, standing upright in the sediment, almost buried but not fully. The edges were too sharp, the angles too perfect. Sergei suggested it could be survey junk, some abandoned frame, equipment from an old project, but there should have been records if anything man-made had ever been placed there. Pavel searched old maps and earlier scan logs. Nothing. No marker, no debris report, no structure. The thing had not been listed because nobody knew it was there, or nobody had wanted it listed. That thought arrived quietly, and once it arrived, it would not leave. Ria told Ilya to move closer. The camera drifted forward through the black. Then the light touched it. And for a few seconds, nobody in the control room spoke. A dark metal surface rose out of the lake floor. Smooth, flat, seamless. Not covered in rust, not broken, not eaten by time. It looked untouched. The beam moved higher, then wider, and the full shape appeared. It was a doorway. A tall, rectangular frame standing alone in the prehistoric silt, as if someone had pushed it into the bottom of the lake and left it there. No wall attached to it, no handle, no symbols, no obvious mechanism, just a metal frame with a center so dark it no longer looked like water. It looked like a hole cut into the lake itself. Rosalie whispered, "That is a door." Nobody corrected her, because there was no better word. Ilya circled it slowly. His breathing was calm, but not as calm as before. "Surface looks clean," he said. "Too clean." "How clean?" Ria asked. "No corrosion," he said. "No growth. Nothing." That made no sense. Something sitting at that depth, in that water, for any long period of time, should have shown signs of age. This looked new, or preserved, or something worse. Pavel began logging suit readings more quickly. Heart rate elevated, but not dangerously. Oxygen normal, pressure stable. Then one sensor changed. A local temperature reading near the doorway. It was wrong. Pavel checked it twice, then 3 times. "Ilya," he said, "move the thermal probe closer." Ilya obeyed. The probe first passed over the surrounding sediment, freezing cold, exactly what they expected. Then it crossed into the center of the frame. The number jumped. Warmer, not by a little, by enough to make the room go silent. Sergei shook his head. "Broken sensor." Then the backup reading came in. Same result. The water inside the doorway was warmer than the lake around it. That should not have been possible. Not at that depth, not in that cold, not in a place where warmth should have died long before. Ilya stopped moving. "Do you hear that?" he asked. Ria straightened. "Hear what?" A pause. Then Ilya said, "There is a vibration." Pavel looked at the suit data. Tiny tremors, repeating. Not from Ilya's movement. "Describe it," Rhea said. Another pause. Then he said, like a motor. Very low, very deep. The hydrophone on his suit caught it a second later. A hum. Faint at first, then clearer. Slow. Mechanical. Steady. Not the sound of the current. Not the sound of the cable. Not the sound of the suit. It was coming from the doorway. Elia turned his helmet slightly, and the audio shifted with him. When he faced away, the hum dulled. When he faced the center again, it grew stronger. The team listened in silence. That was when the mission changed. Before the hum, this had been a discovery. After the hum, it became a threat. Because machines can be explained, but something that seems to listen back cannot. Rhea should have ended it there. Mark the site, pull him out, return with more equipment, more people, more answers. But fear and curiosity are twins. The more impossible the thing looked, the less anyone wanted to turn away from it. Elia, she said, take one more pass around it. He did not answer right away. Then, understood. He moved slowly to the side, sweeping his lamp across the frame. The metal was beautiful in a cold, ugly way. Dark silver under the water, smooth as if cast in a single piece. No welding, no seams, no joints. Then the light crossed the center again, and Elia stopped. What is it? Rhea asked. He did not answer for 3 full seconds. Then he said, the darkness inside it is wrong. A cold silence filled the control room. What does that mean? Pavel asked. Elia's breathing had changed, just slightly, but enough. It does not look like open water, he said. My light goes in, but it does not feel like it hits anything. It just disappears. Mikhail rechecked the sonar. The return from the metal edges was strong. The return from the center was broken. Not solid, not empty, not open in any normal way, as if the beam entered a space the system could not map.
Sergei said nobody should say anything stupid until they had proper data.
No one replied, because the data was already impossible. Ilya moved closer, too close. The front of his suit came within arm's reach of the frame. The hum grew louder through the audio channel. Not louder than the way a machine gets louder when you approach it. Louder the way a voice gets clearer. Then all at once, his oxygen usage spiked. Pavel leaned over the monitor. Ilya, slow your breathing. I'm not breathing faster, Ilya said. But he was. The readout showed it clearly. Oxygen is dropping too quickly. Heart rate climbing. Skin temperature is changing. Back away, Sergei said. I am fine, Ilya answered. Then, more quietly, wait. Rhea gripped the edge of the console. What? Ilya's lamp had tilted. The beam now pointed straight through the center of the doorway. And for just a moment, the camera showed something no one on that boat was prepared to see. Not black water, not rock, not silt. A corridor. A dry, metallic corridor, lit by a pale grey light. Smooth walls, flat floor. No water, no debris, no end in sight. The image lasted less than 2 seconds. Then static tore through the screen. Rosalie gasped so sharply she nearly choked. Mikhail swore. Pavel made a sound that did not even sound human. The feed returned. Black water again. The doorway stood where it had been, silent and dark. But Ilya was not speaking. "Ilya," Ria said, sharper now. "Respond!" Nothing. Then his voice came back, faint and strained. "I saw something." "What did you see?" she asked. A long pause. Then he said, "There was someone standing inside." Nobody moved. Rosalie whispered, "No." Pavel's fingers shook over the keyboard. "Describe it," Ria said. Ilya answered in a voice none of them had heard from him before. Too quiet, too tight. "Tall," he said. "Thin. Far away." Another breath. Then, "No, not far away." The control room felt suddenly smaller. "What do you mean?" Ria asked. Ilya swallowed. They could hear it in the mic. "I thought it was at the end of the corridor," he said. "But it was a reflection." Nobody said a word. He kept staring. Then, "It was closer." The ship lost power 14 seconds later. And for a moment, every screen in the room reflected the same thing. Their own faces. Pale, silent, afraid. Not fully, but enough. The lights dropped, screens flickered, red emergency strips glowed along the walls. The radio cracked into static. For 7 seconds, the vessel seemed to stop breathing. Then the systems came back online. When the camera feed returned, the image was shaking violently. "Ilya!" Ria shouted. "Move back! Now!" No answer. The suit cam showed the doorway again, closer than before. Too close. The center was no longer completely black. A line of pale light had appeared in it. Thin, vertical, like something inside the doorway had been separated by the width of a fingernail. "It is opening," Rosalie whispered. Pavel snapped, "Stop saying that!" But nobody disagreed. The line of light widened by a fraction, then stopped. The hum changed. It rose slightly in pitch and began to pulse. The vibration through Ilya's suit became visible in the data. Tiny repeating tremors, all in rhythm. And then came the worst part. The voice. Not from the doorway. From Ilya. He began speaking, but not like himself. His tone was flat, calm, almost gentle. He said, "It wants me closer." Pavel went white. Ria spoke immediately. "Ilya, step back now!" "I can feel it," he said, as if she had not spoken. "It is warm." His hand lifted. On the screen, they watched his gloved fingers move slowly toward the center of the frame. "No!" Sergei shouted. Ria hit the emergency recall on the tether. The system engaged. The line pulled. Ilya's body jerked backward. The hum stopped. Everything went silent. For 1 second, nothing moved. Then the radio filled with breathing. Fast now. Ragged. Ilya was back. "Pull me up," he said. No one had ever heard fear in his voice before. Now it was everywhere. It filled the radio like cold water. "Pull me up, now!" The winch engaged. Slowly, painfully, the line began hauling him upward through the black water. The doorway receded beneath him, but the camera kept catching flashes of it. The line of light in the center, the metal frame. darkness around it. And once, just once, something pale moving inside. No shape is clear enough to understand, only movement. The ascent should have taken time, but fear makes every minute longer. At first, the team thought they were safe because the distance was increasing. Then Ilya said, "It is coming with me." A silence followed those words that felt endless. "What is coming with you?" Ria asked. He did not reply. The camera shook, then tilted sharply downward. Something had brushed his leg. The lake beneath him was only darkness. Then the lamp caught it. A pale shape rising through the water below. Long, vertical, almost human. Not swimming, not kicking, just ascending, as if being lifted. Rosalie covered her mouth and stumbled back from the monitor. Pavel whispered, "No, no, no." The shape vanished when the beam shifted, but the feeling of it remained. Then Ilya cried out, a sharp, choking sound. "What happened?" Sergei shouted. "My suit," Ilya gasped. "Something touched my suit." The oxygen reading dipped hard. Pressure around the lower seals fluctuated, but there was no tear, no visible damage. It was as if something cold had pressed itself against him from the outside and then let go. The ascent continued, 1,000 feet higher, then another. The team kept telling him to hold on, to breathe more slowly, to stay focused. But his answers stopped making sense. He began muttering. At first it sounded like random words. Then Rosalie realized he was repeating a phrase. He should not have looked. Over and over, quietly, like a prayer. Pavel said his CO2 levels were climbing. That could explain confusion, but it did not explain the next thing. At 3,900 feet, the audio channel picked up 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. The sound did not come through the ship. It came through the suit mic, from very close to him, from something near his chest. "Ilya?" Ria said, barely able to keep her voice steady. "What is making that sound?" He did not answer. The knocks came again. Knock, knock, knock. Then his helmet cam glitched. 1 frame of static, 1 frame of darkness, 1 frame of something leaning beside him in the water. A pale face, too smooth, too white. Eyes open wider than human eyes should be. Then the image snapped back to black water. Rosalie screamed. Sergei actually backed away from the screen. Even Mikhail turned his head like he could not bear to look. "Ilya!" Ria shouted. "Report!" A long hiss of static. Then his voice came through, trembling. "It is next to me." Everyone in that room stopped breathing. "Do not stop the winch," Sergei said. Nobody was going to. The line kept dragging him upward through the dark. 2,000 feet, 1,500, 1,000. The closer he got to the surface, the more unstable the video became. Static bursts, signal tears, strange sound warping, and always, faintly, that hum. Not from below now, from somewhere close, as if whatever had been in the doorway was no longer far behind him, as if it had learned how to follow. At 600 feet, Ilya began crying. Not loudly, just quiet, broken sounds between breaths. Nobody on the team had ever seen that man scared.
Now he sounded like a child, lost in the dark. Ria kept talking to him, telling him to hold on, to keep looking up, to keep breathing. Then he said something so softly, she almost missed it. "It is above me, too." The camera tilted upward. For a second, all they saw was black water and the faint line of the tether rising toward the surface. Then, crossing above him, there was movement. A tall, pale shape drifting soundlessly overhead. It did not swim away. It turned and began descending toward him. The screen exploded in static. The audio became a broken signal shriek. Pavel slammed both hands over his ears. Sergei shouted for the deck crew to prepare for an emergency recovery. The winch screamed as they pushed it faster. At 200 feet, the camera came back one final time. Ilya was twisting in the water, fighting something unseen. The lamp on his helmet swung wildly. The tether shuddered. The surface above was a dim grey blur. Then the light passed over his shoulder, and behind him, close enough to touch, was a hand. Long fingers, pale skin, no suit, no glove, resting lightly on the back of his oxygen tank.
Then the image was cut out forever. They hauled him onto the deck at 2:43 a.m. He was alive, barely. His suit showed no major damage, no tear, no puncture, no impact strong enough to explain his state. But he was shaking so badly, the medical team thought at first it was hypothermia. It was not. He kept trying to pull off his helmet before they were ready to depressurize the system. Not because he could not breathe, because he said he could still hear it. The hum inside the suit. When they finally got the helmet off, he vomited lake water onto the deck. That was impossible. The suit had stayed sealed. But there it was, cold black water spilling from a man who had not drowned. Then he grabbed Ria by the wrist so hard he left bruises and whispered, "It is not a door." She stared at him. His eyes were wide and bloodshot and full of terror. "It is a way in," he said. Then he lost consciousness. At dawn, the site was locked down. No more dives, no public statement, no outside calls. By afternoon, men from agencies nobody recognized had boarded the vessel. They took the hard drives, the backups, the raw sonar, the camera recordings, Rosalie's personal footage, Pavel's logs, even handwritten notes. The team was told the mission had encountered a classified geological hazard. Nobody believed that. Ilya survived, but after that night, he was never the same. He refused to go near deep water again. He refused interviews. He refused to look at any image of Lake Baikal. For weeks, he said almost nothing. Then, according to Pavel, one evening, he finally spoke. Only once. He said, "When I looked through it, I thought I was seeing inside." Pavel asked him what he meant. Ilya answered, "It was looking out." 2 days later, he disappeared. No note, no phone, no activity on his accounts. Just gone. Officially, there is no record that any of this happened. No dive report, no public file, no released footage. Only fragments survived. A copied thermal graph showing impossible warmth in freezing water. A corrupted sonar image of a vertical structure in the lake bed. An audio clip of the hum. And one damaged still frame from Ilya's helmet cam. Most people who see it focus on the corridor.
that impossible corridor inside the doorway. Dry, lit, empty. But that is not the worst part. The worst part is what is reflected on the far wall. At first, it looks like a tall figure standing at the end of the corridor. But if the brightness is raised, you understand the mistake. It is not far away. It is a reflection. The real figure is much closer. So close that most of its body is outside the camera's view. So close that when Elia was staring through the doorway, something may already have been standing just beside him, watching him, listening to him breathe, waiting for him to understand too late that he was not the first one to look through that opening, and maybe not the first one to come back from it. There is one last detail. It comes from Rosalie. Years later, after she had completely left documentary work, she admitted something she had hidden from the others. When the men took the footage, they missed one thing. A short sound file on an old backup card, only 6 seconds long, mostly static, mostly hum. But in the last second, just beneath the noise, there is a voice. Not Elia's, not Ria's, not anyone on the boat. A low whisper in broken Russian. When cleaned up, the words become clear enough to understand. It says, "Open it again." That is why some people still believe the object is down there, untouched in the dark, standing in the prehistoric silt where no sunlight has reached for ages. Waiting, still warm in freezing water, still humming, still aware. And if that is true, then the deepest fear is not that they found a doorway at the bottom of Lake Baikal. It is that the doorway was already active, that it did not need to be built, that it did not need to be opened, that all those years in the black pressure and silence, hidden beneath the oldest lake on Earth, it was never dead, only closed. And now something on the other side knows the way to the surface.
Thank you for watching. If this story pulled you into the dark waters of Lake Baikal and made you wonder what might still be waiting below, then I hope you will stay with me for more strange, eerie, and unsettling stories. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves a good mystery. And tell me in the comments, do you think the doorway was built by someone? Or do you think it was never meant to be found at all? Your comments help me know which stories you want to hear next. Thank you again for watching. And remember, some doors are not dangerous because they are locked. They are dangerous because something on the other side is waiting to be opened.